Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. All of it brought to you by a brand new sponsor to the Three Martini Lunch, Stamps.com. Right now, our listeners can get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a digital scale. And all you have to do is go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in 3 Martini. So much more on that a little bit later in the podcast. Jim, let's start with our good martini and go where we always go for our good martinis, and that's The View. Joy Behar, that strong conservative, is in our spotlight in the good martini today. But no, the ladies were talking about the whole dust-up over the confrontation with the Covington Catholic High School kids and Nathan Phillips and the indigenous people and also the black Israelites at the Lincoln Memorial on Saturday afternoon. And to their credit, they pointed out that what seemed like the story in the beginning turned out to really not be the story, or at least a very small part of the story, because once more facts came in, the understanding of what happened changed a lot. And so Whoopi Goldberg showed one of the clips of the black Israelites heckling the Covington kids, and then she came back with this and Joy Behar's lurch to the truth.
So many people admitted they made snap judgments before these other facts came in. But is it that we just instantly say that's what it is based on what we see in that moment and then have to walk stuff back when it turns out we're wrong? Why is that? Do we keep making the same mistake?
Because we're desperate to get Trump out of office. That's why.
Not everybody, though.
But what does that have to do?
I think that's the reason. I think the press jumps the gun a lot because we have so much circumstantial evidence against this guy that we basically are hoping that, Cohen's got the goods and what have you. And so it's wishful thinking.
Jim, first of all, I find it fascinating that she calls the press we, but this is absolutely what I think a lot of people on the left think when a story like this happens. This could hurt Trump, so therefore let's roll.
This is the absolute wisest words I have heard out of Whoopi Goldberg since she played Guinan on Star Trek The Next Generation. The wise advice dispensing bartender at 10 Forward. Yes, I know this stuff. Stop giving me grief. So it was a remarkably self-aware interaction between these two women, neither of whom you and I would agree with very much. But this is a remarkable self-awareness. And you could kind of get Whoopi Goldberg, that faint tinge of, hey, wait, should we be doing this? Or are we really holding up what we think we're holding up when we do like this? And Joy Behar, for all of her other flaws, is really, really honest in that. Now, what I think is really kind of fascinating here is this belief that by going after somebody who was a Trump voter, actually in this case, the kid's not even a Trump voter. Right? It's not old enough. A Trump hat-wearing person, teenager, that somehow if they could get that person, this somehow helps remove Trump from office. And there's this, kind of slowly dawning over the course of the conversation. That doesn't really change what Mueller is going to find. That doesn't really change what Cohen is going to testify. It doesn't really change anything that actually interacts and happens to President Trump. The only thing that they kind of are doing on this bank shot is to basically make being associated with the president so toxic, so dangerous, a road to financial and reputational ruin that no one dares do so, even if deep down, even if they happen to agree with the president. Oh, by the way, this is kind of what happened, I suspect, in 2016. This is one of the reasons, this is not, one of the reasons Trump won was this sense of people being tired of what they can think and what they can do and what they can say. And the idea that there's somebody who's always ready to pounce and use, paint you as some sort of extremist and get you denounced and lead the social media, rage mob against you. But also remember that Trump did better than a bunch of the polls. And I think some of this was people don't like saying that they support Trump or the Republican Party or the more conservative candidate or whoever is the villain du jour. But then on election day, they get shocked. And you hear Democrats saying, how could we possibly lose? The polls said we were ahead. Well, because you've created an environment where people don't feel that they can be honest about what they actually think and what they actually believe and what they actually support. So this is the greatest moment on The View, Greg, since really the last time Meghan McCain smacked down somebody, which happens pretty weekly, if not more frequently these days. But actually, I mean, look, it's one of those moments. The other thing is, if we could get Goldberg and Behar to say, hey, this isn't good. This isn't actually moving the ball in our direction. This is actually just taking random people who are the wrong place at the wrong time and suddenly turning them into Emmanuel Goldstein, the designated villain of the world of 1984. And that this isn't something we should be doing. Then actually there's potential for real, a significantly better politics. I suspect this will be only a fleeting moment of self-awareness and recognition, but I want to salute the ladies nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think you lurched to the critical point there. They're doing themselves so much harm by picking fights like this, and we saw it with Kavanaugh as well. I think the Democrats would have won a lot more seats in the House, or at least more seats in the House. I don't know about the Senate if they had just not gone insane in that whole process.
Just one other thing to jump in. The cover story on this most recent National Review is by Douglas Murray. It's got this 50s pop art one. It's about the Trump Brexit freakouts. And he's talking about this phenomenon. He talks about what he calls the snowplow effect. And no, I'm not about to complain about yesterday's delayed opening. The idea that snowplows, usually if they have a point to them, they kind of push the snow to one side or the other. And he feels like a lot of our recent debates and arguments end up pushing you into one of two camps, even if you have a problem or you're not totally on board with one extreme or the other. Because, given a choice, I'm not 100% thrilled with the behavior of those kids. I wish they hadn't done the tomahawk chop. I wish the chaperones had the good sense to move the kids away from the black nationalists who were screaming at them, and maybe the whole situation could have been resolved before it started. But given a choice between watching these kids get, no pun intended, crucified, and turned into, the public enemy of the week over this by people who are just looking for clicks and fury. Given a choice between that or a full-throated denunciation, you got to stand by them. It's the elimination of the middle ground because they want to define beyond the pale as anyone who's one iota to the right of them.
I don't even know how to transition into Stamps.com out of that, but hey.
So get your National Review in the mail.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, if you've been paying attention to postage rates for forever stamps and other things, you know that the rates have actually gone up again. But thankfully, Stamps.com can ease the pain with big discounts off post office retail rates. And with Stamps.com, you save 5 cents off every first-class stamp and up to 40% off priority mail. That kind of savings really adds up, especially for your small business. Plus, Stamps.com is completely online, which saves you a lot of time. No more inconvenient trips to the post office. Stamps.com automatically calculates and prints the exact amount of postage you need for every letter or package you send. You'll never overpay or underpay again.
Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your fingertips. You can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. Stamps.com makes it easy. They send you a free digital scale, which will automatically calculate the exact postage you need. Stamps.com will even help you decide the best class of mail based on your needs. Finally, Stamps.com saves you money. They give you postage discounts that you can't get at the post office, including 5 cents off of every first-class stamp. Anything you can do at the post office, you can now do from your desk for less.
And right now, our listeners get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. See for yourself why over 700,000 small businesses use Stamps.com. The efficiency, the savings, it just makes sense. So go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage there at Stamps.com, and type in 3 Martini, all one word. That's Stamps.com, and enter 3 Martini. Jim, hopefully some pro-life folks are sending some strongly worded letters to the governor of New York State, Andrew Cuomo, as we transition into our bad martini. Reading a little bit here from your colleague Alexander DeSanctis at National Review. The New York State Senate passed the Reproductive Health Act last evening by a vote of 38 to 24. It had already passed the state assembly 92 to 47. Now signed by Andrew Cuomo, the bill will expand the state's already liberal abortion regime to allow late-term abortions when the patient is within 24 weeks from the commencement of pregnancy, or there is an absence of fetal viability, or the abortion is necessary to protect the patient's life or health. Perhaps more significant, the legislation provides a further exception to permit abortion at any point during pregnancy if a healthcare practitioner deems it necessary for the mother's life or health, which can include physical, emotional, psychological, familial, and even the woman's age. In other words, Alexandra writes, abortion will be available to women essentially on demand up to the point of birth. The bill, now the law, will also decriminalize abortion, moving it from the state's criminal code to the public health code. But that's not enough for Andrew Cuomo. He has to spike the football. This is over at Big League Politics. They say New York City's One World Trade Center was lighted in pink to celebrate the passing of a law that would protect the practice of late-term abortion in the state on Tuesday night. Cuomo made the order that the top of the Freedom Tower, which is, of course, the structure built to replace the Twin Towers destroyed on 9/11, be lit as a means to commemorate the law. So, Jim, not only is this disgusting for those of us, of course, who believe that life begins at conception, the tremendous loss of life that will now ensue in New York, but the classless liberals have to rub it in our faces as well.
You know, Greg, I suppose we could argue that pink is an appropriate color to put on the Freedom Tower to mark all of the unborn girls who will never see life because of this legislation. Obviously, that's not what Cuomo meant with this. Now, here's the thing. When you see the lights on the Freedom Tower, which is the structure which, replaced the Twin Towers, it's very similar to the lighting they do on the Empire State Building, and they'll do it red and green around Christmas time. The Yankees or Mets do well. They'll light it up in the team colors. Theoretically, it could someday be green for the Jets, although I don't know if that's ever happened or hasn't happened in many years. Most of the time, it's holidays, patriotic things. It's very nonpartisan, non-controversial events that they choose to light up this major landmark in. This is really spiking the football. This is really look, I don't doubt New York State has more pro-choice voters than pro-life. I don't like it. Wish it was otherwise. But hey, you know what? They passed legislation fair and square. They're fine to do that. But to take something that is not associated with politics and turn it into a celebration. This is, I would argue, a flat-out abuse of power on the part of Governor Andrew Cuomo. You're not supposed to be using the Freedom Tower in order to celebrate getting your legislation through. That's not what it's there for. It's not what it's meant for. And when you do that, you are taking your opponents, which even if, New York is has more pro-choice voters than pro-life voters are still there. Still a lot of Catholics in New York State. Still a lot of Christians in New York State. Not that you have to be Catholic or Christian, but, there were people who opposed this legislation. And doing this lighting up of the Freedom Tower this way is taking their noses and rubbing their noses in it. Which you wonder why we have such partisan anger in this country? Do you wonder why people are not speaking to their relatives? It's this attitude, right? You have a big win. I make this point over and over again. Your allies of today could very well turn out to be your enemies of tomorrow, and the flip side is true as well. The people you're fighting with tomorrow could very well be your allies, a week from now. You end up in a situation where you see your opposition as the enemy. I think it was over at AEI, they were talking about this flourishing of contempt in American politics. It's not just the sense that your opponent is wrong. It's not just that you think your opponent is stupid. It's not just that you think it's that you think that there is nothing of value in them. And it's not merely enough to institute coverage for birth control for most employers. You got to make the little sisters the poor do it, right? Nuns. We're going to make nuns pay for birth control. This kind of attitude. You're wondering why you see such animosity in our politics? It's stuff like this. Andrew Cuomo nothing would have changed if he had not given this order to light up the Freedom Tower pink. But he did it anyway because he wanted to, because he couldn't help it, and or maybe he thinks he's running for president someday or something like that. But it's absolutely appalling. And legislation is really, really bad. But the spiking of the football strikes me as a very clear moment of where we are in our politics right now.
All right, let's move on to our crazy martini now, Jim. And for that, we head over to the UK Independent with some help from Hot Air. Joe Neguse is a freshman Colorado Democrat elected in 2018 to serve the state's 2nd congressional district. And he told reporters on Friday the Judiciary Committee in the House could move to impeach the newly appointed Justice Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court if their findings prove he knowingly lied to lawmakers during his confirmation process. Donald Trump's second pick to serve a lifelong appointment on the Supreme Court was alleged to have provided misleading statements surrounding sexual assault accusations leveled against him by Deborah Ramirez, a former Yale classmate. Quote, "There's no question Kavanaugh committed perjury during the confirmation hearings and so forth," Mr. Neguse said on Friday. "I think the Judiciary Committee is likely to take that up," unquote. Jazz Shaw over at Hot Air says, "To say that Neguse is treading on thin ice here is a bit of an understatement. The only testimony given by Kavanaugh that seems to be up for debate involves the specific date when he found out about one of the women accusing him of sexual misconduct and whether or not he was giving the real definitions of slang terms scrawled in his high school yearbook. If that's all you've got for a possible perjury charge, you're going to make the committee look like a laughingstock." So, Jim, I guess Sheldon Whitehouse was just the opening act. We're going to go through Devil's Triangle and FFFFFFF and all this stuff again, apparently, in the House Judiciary Committee.
This is one of those things where I kind of want to say, I suppose, considering his district, maybe his constituents are proud. I would like to see, I kind of wish you almost want to give them the floor. No, you go ahead. Let's hold those hearings on the yearbook entries. You attempt to impeach Supreme Court justice over this. Good luck, pal. Let's probably one of the best things we could do is get out of their way. But I do kind of wonder if you'd like to say to the American people about the 2018 midterms, you sure you don't want a do-over? Because I know, look, listeners to this podcast got a lot of problems with Trump. I understand a lot of people were not comfortable with all of his decisions. Probably a lot of people not comfortable with the sort of things he says, he tweets, his persona, his temperament. There's plenty to criticize there. But by voting for a Democratic House, America voted for divided government. And you hear a lot of folks in our world, at least in my world, Greg, say things like, I like divided government. It means the government can't get anything done and they'll stop messing around with my life. And in theory, that works, Greg. But you notice here we are. We now have a Democratic House. Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker, and the government has been shut down for 33 days. The Coast Guard is out there capturing migrant smugglers, practicing ice water rescues, doing their duties, not getting paid. The FBI, union or association of employees did a press conference yesterday. They said because of the shutdown, the FBI cannot get cash to buy drugs for narcotic stings. Greg, I don't know this for sure. My suspicion is drug dealers don't take credit cards, and you also can't pay confidential informants. Now, by the way, there could be abuses in confidential informants, but the idea, I just don't like the idea that somewhere in the lobby of an FBI office, there's a couch, Greg, and they're scrounging for change back there to see if anything's fallen out. Cybersecurity's on hold. The economic hit is getting here. Government shutdown stinks, and it stinks. A big reason for it is we've got divided government. Now, if Republicans had kept the House, the odds of getting something through would be much more likely. But it's not just that. I think also the latest thing is that Trump wants to go ahead with the State of the Union address. And the question is going to be whether Pelosi will say, no, you're not allowed to use the House chambers. I will not allow you to do that. And the idea that Trump could go, he could do it in the Senate chambers. He could do it from the Oval Office. He could do it. They're even talking about taking him on the road. You want a divided government, America? This is what it is. You knew what you were getting with these Democrats. We did our best to warn you. And now you've got people talking about trying to impeach Supreme Court justices, and government has come to a standstill. Hope it's worth it, America. Hope it's worth it.
And then you got Brian Fallon, former spokesman for the Hillary campaign, wanting the Democratic presidential hopefuls to promise to pack the court with a couple more justices if they get into the White House in 2021 because of course, the supposedly criminal way that the Republicans filled the Scalia seat, I assume. Or maybe they're just upset now that they're probably going to lose most 5-4 decisions. Either way, they're just not happy with the way that the current court is constructed. So if you don't like it, just throw a fit and maybe you'll get your way.
Look, I get Americans finding Republicans in Congress being too acquiescent to the Trump agenda or not standing up to him enough or not calling him out when I get that argument. There's ample evidence for it. But it's not like you had the option of reasonable, even-keeled Democratic opposition, particularly after the primaries were done. This is the opposition you get, and when you have this kind of just passionate, enraged, we must destroy them And we must permanently rewrite the rules of government so that we never lose power again, i.e. court packing and things like that. We have to take their justices off the court. You end up in a situation where government cannot function. House divided against itself cannot stand. Certainly not at this level. So, good luck, America. Happy Wednesday.
Always ending on a cheery note. Jim, talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And don't forget, head over to Stamps.com. Get your 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. Stamps.com, and then enter 3 Martini after you click on the microphone at the top of the homepage. Tune in again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.